everybody, and welcome to Coffee Chat with Jeanie. Today's a special day.
It's your birthday.
It is my birthday.
We always call it Star Wars because we're recording this a little bit ahead because you're busy and I'm going to be out of town. But May the 4th. May the 4th.
May the 4th be, I love that. You sent that to me. May the 4th be with you. And these numbers are getting weirder and weirder. But Jeanie and I are using a product, and you can contact us. We'll tell you what that is. That kind of reverses the aging thing. You look really good, Jeanie. We've been using it for about 7 months.
Feel good, and so do you. And that's really what it is. It's about, releasing the toxins and the inflammation in our bodies.
Exactly. And so it's available. Go to our website, Beautiful Network of Women, and check us out there because we have a secret that's making us feel better and looking better for sure. So I'm actually okay with another year because I actually look younger than I did 5 years ago. So here we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so do you.
Works for me.
It worked for you.
But I can't wait to talk to you today, Cindy, because what we have been discussing is your upcoming musical in San Angelo. And you wrote this based on your book, Pearl, and it's called Pearl. And, one of the things, excuse me, I've had some little allergies. I lived in San Angelo, Texas from 93 to 97. Mm-hmm. And, so I'm well aware of that town, and it's lovely. But one of the things that you had said at when you were starting to write this book and then writing your musical is that someone said, like, at the end of the 1800s, the beginning of the 1900s, all the oil catters and the oil fields and the wildcatters and the cowboys were all there. And someone said, if you threw a tent over San Angelo, it would be one big bordello.
That's right. And the ladies in San Angelo got rid of all that evidence.
Yes, yeah.
They have a big photo collection there. I believe it's at ASU, but you don't see any photos of those ladies that were there. And I was walking down Concho Avenue one day, and they have Miss Hattie's, which is a tourist attraction, and the fort is a tourist attraction. They have a few, because San Angelo really is kind of the gateway to the West. That's why Fort Concho was built, was to protect the settlers going west from the Comanche. And that's how the bordellos came about, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I was walking down Concho Avenue, and I had heard that the Cactus Hotel, for $12, a man could buy a room, a steak, and a girl for $12 at one time at the Cactus Hotel. And I started thinking about those women, and, that's not what that wasn't their dream come true, to become a prostitute. And I had this overwhelming desire to understand that these women, because they were socially totally unacceptable, but the men loved them and left them and used them and left them. They shared secrets there. There was no entrapment. So the integrity was pretty high, and everybody knew what it was. The male human is different than the female human, and we're wired differently. And that's why it's the oldest profession in the universe, right? And one morning, I had kind of been thinking about it, and I kind of heard this faint little, we weren't bad people, just kind of heard it in my head. And one morning, Jeanie, I woke up and I was in total theta, no thoughts yet. I was headed towards the coffee pot, and I started hearing, we weren't bad people. Tell them why we did it. We weren't bad people. Tell them why we did it. And it got louder and louder in my head. And I felt this energy of excitement as if like she can hear us. She hears us kind of thing, right? Call it my imagination. I don't know what it was. I feel strongly that because of my experience that these people who passed on the other side and they were misunderstood or they had unfinished business or whatever, there's a restlessness there. I kept hearing this over and louder in my head. So I went with it. And by the time I got to my piano, if you could wear my slippers for just one day, you'd understand why I'm nice to the men and I make my living this way. And I wrote it down. And what's the first rule that we have at our retreats?
No judgment.
No judgment. And so I started thinking about these women and how harshly they were judged. They were used. They were judged. Lonely profession. In those days, most girls didn't live past 30 years old in that profession. A few of them were lucky and rescued, but most of them didn't live past 30 because it was hard on their bodies and they would get into, I think it's lithium, the drug, they got into drugs and a lot of them overdosed actually on drugs. So I felt this real compassion for these women that worked in the brothels and still do. And so I started doing all of this research. I found the Everlay sisters who made millions of dollars in this business in Chicago, where there were 500 brothels. They competed with 500 brothels in the city of Chicago. Why were they making millions of dollars and not everybody else? And then I figured it out. The same reason a man with money will buy a yacht or a Lamborghini or a mansion. Same thing. They offered a product of a beautiful woman dressed in elegant clothes with the finest chefs, the finest musicians. You had to be somebody to be able to go into the Everlay house in Chicago.
They were trained, and not just any man could come in. And what I love about your story is that the Everlay sisters, and then in your book, what's her name, Miss Hattie, or?
Oh, no, Victoria Pearl.
That's it, Pearl, Victoria. But what they did is to teach these girls manners and self-esteem. And they were made to read newspapers and to keep up on the daily events and to be good conversationalists, take care of their bodies, to not just, throw themselves at these guys. And I mean, it totally took it up to another notch, like you were just saying.
Oh, yeah.
And the Everlays, and it was Everleigh, they were the sisters. Mm-hmm. And I think that you had mentioned in your book that that's where the phrase came, I'm going to go get laid.
Everlaid.
Laid, yeah. But I love this because in your book and in this musical that you have written, she has integrity and she ends up being a widow. And I don't want to give the whole thing away, but, ends up opening this house, and people do look down on her and her girls, and they're shunned in church and all of that jazz. But it totally shifted the energy around teaching these women how to invest their money and how to buy land and how to take care of themselves. And also what I found to be interesting is that they were very rarely ever engaged in, what we would call sexual intercourse.
And intimacy.
It was like the finer arts and like taking care of them. And, it's all in your head anyhow. So anyhow, I'm so excited. And your play or your musical is being put on by ASU, right? Or at
college in San Angelo.
State. And what are the dates on that?
It will be the last weekend of June and the first weekend of July. So they're working hard. They are already making costumes. They're making the sets. I should get a poster today that I'll be doing. But the play itself really addresses human nature all around. And it's rated R because of the nature. But you're right. When I first heard about the Everleigh sisters and that they taught the girls how to entertain the gentlemen without having to be intimate with them, I went, whoa. So what were they paying for? They were paying for, I mean, that's a happy ending thing, whatever, but they were really paying for the experience of dining with a lovely woman who's intelligent. In the Everleigh house, if they were ever disrespectful, fat, obese, or stinky, no, they were not allowed in. And they also had to have a lot of money. So these very wealthy men were in the company of other wealthy men. They were an elite group. So this elite privileged group, that's where you went, because not everyone was allowed in, which is an interesting concept, especially in today's world as we're understanding the way that things are working. And so the male ego of I'm somebody, right? They said, yes, you are. Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah.
But the women that worked there in my book, what I did was I took 10 different personalities, and they would wake me up in the middle of the night, Jeanie, why women would go into that profession. So we have a rape victim. We have someone who was kicked out of her house. We have someone who was an orphan. We have someone who was a widow. We have someone who boyfriend went and got another girl pregnant, and she's just fun-loving, Maggie, right? So we have all these different characters. We have someone who's an aspiring actress who had been kept by a gangster and had to run away into a place where he couldn't find her. And in the play, something happens with that. So there's all these different personalities and how and backstories of these women and how they came to work at a bordello. Well, one day after I had finished the novel, I was just tweaking it. We were in the editing process. I was looking into this big room that we had. We had a big bonus room. And for some, I could just see thousands and thousands and thousands. I could feel them as if they were like little lights.
The women.
Spirits of women. So grateful. And just all of the 10 women characters who I had brought to life, there was huge lines behind all the widows, all the ones that were cast out of their house, all the ones who had nowhere to go, all the ones who had been raped, all the ones who were sold by their parents, all of those, that just big lines, just thousands and thousands of women who did this for a living. And when I heard about the no intimacy with the Everleighs, and I was thinking about today's world and how these poor gals now, when we were growing up, Jeanie, there were the good girls and the bad girls, right? Now it's not cool to be a good girl. It's not cool. You are not socially accepted in these schools, some schools, from what I understand. If you haven't had sex yet? 7th grade, 8th grade, right?
Or younger.
So we have a whole...
Is social media too. They do the sexting and all of that. It's on the internet forever.
Yes.
So it's, yeah.
But human nature is still what it is. You still have the male human who is programmed to make babies or to do what they do. And then you have the female human who is looking to be impregnated by someone who will help take care of the baby. somebody big and strong and protective. Those are our mammal kind of primordial instincts that we have that are still alive today. But we as women understand that whenever and you could be married and husband needs a sleeping pill, right? And so we're tired, we're not really whatever, but we do anyway, because to keep peace in the house and to make sure that he's in a good place. Well, what about us? What about us? Because we give and we give and we give. And I'm not saying hold back. I'm not saying any of that. And one thing that I address, or that I like to ask people, and so if this is going to go into R-rated, so if you don't like R-rated, then turn off your video now, okay?
Say to the kids out of the room here, right?
But I always ask women, I say, have you ever faked it before? Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't met, and so I think one woman said no, but I don't know if she knew what that was anyway, because everybody else says, well, yeah. So it's really not the man's fault, because somehow we make them feel like Tarzan. If you fake it, they think they're doing something right, and they're pounding on their chest. Like, yeah, yeah. Well, they didn't do it right. You were tired, right? So Pearl addresses that too, how to do it right, and how to just ask, what would you like? Just ask her what a sense of appreciation. And that is the goal of every woman. If you show a woman appreciation, how many times does your husband or your kids or whoever's in the household come in and say, oh, Mom, thank you for washing the floor. Oh, Mom, thank you for my clean clothes. Hey, thank you for dusting. Thank you for doing all these dishes. Thank you for watering the garden. Wow, the garden looks great. Do we ever hear that? No. And the domestic woman, before we started getting jobs and careers, they never heard that either. And so you had the wife who was running the household, and there was usually, in middle class, they had some kind of a maid or servant, right? Which was usually a woman, right? Who was running the household, blah, blah. Was there appreciation? Well, yes. For the maid, there was. She got paid, or she got room and board, or something like that, right? Where wives, you don't get paid. You know, you're budgeting, you're whatever with your husband, maybe, unless you're married to a very wealthy man, which was like everybody's dream, was to marry a wealthy man so they could go shopping and have lunch and take care and blah, blah. So it's all about who you married for a long time. Now it's more about, what do you offer society? Where you bring your value into society. And a lot of women that were, fancy country clubbers, that type of thing. I belonged to the country club in San Angelo and had lunch. And a lot of women who don't work, they find their value in charities and helping out and volunteering for different things like that. So they bring their value there. It's all about appreciation. It's all.
I want to, before we get, because we're kind of winding down, these conversations can go forever and I love it. But one of the things that I want to bring up is your music.
Oh,
in this musical, it is extraordinary. First of all, you are an amazing musician. You're a classically trained pianist, but you're also very creative, and you've written just hundreds of songs. You've won awards. You've been, at the top of the top, and continue to develop that. But the music, like the opening number to this, is just tell that story real quick, and then maybe we can have another conversation at some point.
Okay. So the opening number is inspired. There's a place in San Angelo called the Saxy Box. And the owner, as I was writing this, I would interview anybody over 60 years old that lived in San Angelo that could give me any kind of history. And she said, I used to know one of the women who had worked at one of the bordellos, and she said that she was an older gal, But she would say, oh, when those cowboys would come in on Friday nights, we'd see that dust cloud getting bigger and bigger. We used to get just so excited because, I mean, which woman doesn't love to at least look at a hot cowboy? Mm-hmm. Because in the 1920s, the film went into the new hero wasn't Prince Charming wearing tights and feathers in his hat. It was a cowboy.
It was a gunslinger.
It was a gunslinging, Wyatt Earp, get her done cowboys. So that's what this is about. It's about cowboys. It weaves in the story of the Santa Rita well, which opened the whole Permian Basin, which is the reason Texas is an oil monster, and about lovely, respectful ladies and human nature. So there's a lot of humor in this as well. But
I love this story. I love your book. I love the play. Well, you and I spent a lot of times, and you've been sharing with me, and I feel so privileged to kind of, step behind the curtain with you.
Yes.
And I urge people, please put this on your calendar, the last weekend in June, the first weekend in July,
right.
In San Angelo, Texas. And Cindy, you're going to be putting some things up as soon as you've got a way to get tickets and all of that. I know
Sure. Well, they can go to our website and at Beautiful Network of Women, mm-hmm. and we'll have a link to there. And then also we're blocking off some hotel rooms. So any of our BNOW ladies that want to come to that, we'll block off some rooms for you.
And bring your husbands, bring your friends.
Right. And if you go to my website at cynthiaproductions.com, you can download all the songs from the musical. So
fantastic.
Yeah, just go in there. In fact, just go in there and where it says musical, just do that and you can download the songs. They're a lot of fun. There's songs that will make you laugh and there's songs that will make you go, "Aw." So
awesome. You are so awesome. Thank you for spending this time with us this morning. And
always, Jeanie, I love our coffee chat.
I do too, sweetie. And I love getting up and having coffee with you. But what I want to tell everyone, our listeners, go into our YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the notifications bell so that you see, our commitment is to upload these every Monday. Sometimes, life happens, but usually it's Monday morning. And make yourself aware and send it to your friends. We have men. I have a lot of men who watch these. They love these coffee chats.
No kidding. Yeah. And also, don't forget to sign up for that cruise. We've got one more month here, folks. So go to the website. Don't miss out on this. You deserve it.
You deserve it.
You deserve it.
It's the Celebrity Equinox. It's out of Fort Lauderdale. It's October the 8th through the 14th. And I mean, we're going to have such a phenomenal time.
It's going to be fun.
My friend, I love you. And we'll talk soon.
Okay. All right. Thank you.